Welcome to the Nature's Image Farm podcast. We're glad you're here. I'm Greg.
And I'm Susan. And together we're raising 7 kids on the farm and learning life lessons along the way.
So pull up a chair, rest your heels, and let's talk all things bees, homesteading, and the old-time ways.
Let's get after it.
If you're interested in nukes, packages, queens, or supplies, visit us on the web at naturesimagefarm.com.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Nature's Image Farm podcast. We're glad you're here. Hope you're enjoying the early spring. Hopefully you're not buried in snow or buried in mud, but I think that goes with the weather. You're either knee deep in mud, you're knee deep in snow, or you're somewhere in between, hoping you don't get mixed up in either.
Yeah, exactly. It's mud season. I don't even call it spring anymore. It's just mud season.
It's officially mud season here.
Yes.
I know each week we talk about kind of what's in bloom and what's changing. What we're seeing here is the grass is greening up. All the trees, the buds are swelling. The willows are leaving out, are turning green. The forsythia is in bloom. And we've mentioned before, this is the Nature's Image Farm podcast, where we talk about bees, homesteading, and the old-time ways. A lot of the old-time ways, the old-timers would have little points in across the calendar that they would say, when this flowers, then this is going to happen, or at this month, if we see snow, this is going to happen, or little ways to forecast the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And historically in Ohio, old timers would say 3 snows after the forsythia blooms.
Yes.
And Susie, how many snows have we had?
Well, like, I want to count 3, but listen, if it like barely flurries, just like I'm talking 30 seconds of snow, I'm counting it. I don't know if that's really. So if we were to just say, listen, it's a coating, like I saw white, then today would be the first. We woke up this morning and it was
the first
white.
That was kind of a shock. Yeah, it was one of the few nights we were so tired, so wore out.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that tonight. We're going to talk about stressed out. How do we keep it together? I know a lot of us are dealing and working through a lot of the spring stress. We can't complain with the snow that we have here. I just saw Ian Stebler here. He's tuning in tonight. Saw some updates from his place where it is just nothing but deep snow. So if anything, Ian, and while you're listening, when I see folks update from the South, and everything's blooming and green and they're making splits and dropping queen cells, I got to say, man, I'm like the last one to get to do any of that. But always remember, there's always someone further north than you. I don't take joy or comfort in it, but at least we know, hey, no matter how cold it gets here, it's always colder and snowier where Ian's at up in Canada. Isn't that right?
It's got to, yes.
But I think spring's coming early for all of us, and it's causing a lot of anxiety for a lot of folks, whether you're a seasoned beekeeper or you're just getting started. This seems to be the time of year. We go through different processes mentally and physically and maybe even spiritually throughout the year. When we get to the end of the summer and we're getting into the fall, we are so done with everything. We hit that burnout. And sometimes a lot of things get left undone. It's really hard to really push through and follow through. Winter comes and we have all these grand ideas. We're going to do things better. Here's the new approach that we're going to take. We're going to tighten up this. We're going to tighten up that.
Yeah.
And then spring comes and you're thinking, great, I still got 3 or 4 weeks to go. Everything's fine. Everything's kind of running okay. And then the next thing you know, you get up one morning and what is that I'm hearing? Why do we have songbirds chirping this early?
I love it.
I love it too, but then you freak out. Then you look around and the trees are waking up and the ground is waking up. Spring is waking up with or without you.
Yeah, but what are you when you don't have, for me, I feel like fingers and toes in the soil. I feel so not empty, but kind of like it's just that antsiness to get in the garden. It's so much work ahead of me. And I know that every single year I've got so much work before me, But I think to myself, what more, well, what better would I be doing with my time?
Well, yeah.
If you didn't have your bees to look forward to in the spring, just everybody waking up and doing those things, then you go, like, what, it's something to look forward to, I think.
Definitely. I'm excited. I mean, I'm so pumped up about this
but
year.
The to-do list is long.
But whether it's your bee yard, your homestead, or your farm, if you are in a constant growth cycle year after year and you're pushing 10%, 20%, 50%, maybe you're doubling, maybe you're 100% growth, that can be taxing.
Yeah.
In all sense of the word. And sometimes we need what we think that bit of time before point A and point B. We need that stretch of road to get us there.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you realize you're getting that 8th mile warning, like, oh my gosh, point B is going to be here way faster than we think. What do we do? And that causes a lot of stress for a lot of folks, a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of invoices that end up being due. Do you have all of your equipment built? Are your bees ready to go? Are they fed? How are they looking? Have you actually gone out there and looked? There's so many things that happen this time of year for a lot of folks that it's really, this is the time of the year where rubber meets the road. If you're not preparing right now, you're going to be in for a very poor treat of being left behind. And I think we've talked about that. We've tried to bring this into the conversation the last few Sundays.
Yeah.
Let's just try to get the mindset right.
It's just because we're talking to ourselves.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of great folks on tonight. While we are definitely bringing you into this conversation, a lot of what you hear tonight is just trying to talk out the things that we're thinking, talk out the walk that we want to see us have as a family moving forward. And so I hope you guys can find some value in that. If you're listening tonight and you are in that kind of a place and you're feeling that stress, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling excited, but you're worried, oh my gosh, maybe even afraid, am I going to get all the things done? Am I going to have the money to cash flow the operation as it grows? All these things coming up. You're not alone. But if there is something in specific that you are really anxious or worried about for your spring season, drop us a comment below, and we'll hope to make sure that we can kind of cover that as we move forward. But Susie, you want to get some updates out of the way, and then we'll get moving?
Sure. Okay. So I'm going to update you guys on how completely out of the loop I am. I woke up this morning not knowing that we had sprung forward. I thought that my phone or my alarm clock, I didn't know which one was actually broke. Like, they don't match, and why? And everybody was just sleeping peacefully. And I woke up naturally, like no alarm, which we don't try to always set an alarm, but I thought something really bad had gone wrong. And I thought, why is this so late? And this is so early. And one of my kids had to tell me that the clocks had changed. And I just felt completely ridiculous that normally I know that. And I haven't looked at the calendar in probably like a physical calendar to see that it was going to be spring ahead for probably 10 days. And so I just didn't pay attention to the fact that I needed to change the clock. So every clock was wrong. And some of the clocks are now right because I waited 6 months. So there's that. And I don't know how to reset my alarm clock. So there's that.
I think y'all should just be proud we made it here at the right time tonight. I mean,
yes, exactly. And we made it to church on time. Woo!
Yeah, there you go. Let's get dressed, eat something, and let's get going.
Yeah, fly out the door.
we've had a very awesome and just intense week. We went out to South Dakota and visited Premier Bee, and then on the way home we got caught up in some weather, and we pulled off to overnight in Iowa City. Anyone who spends time on the road as you're driving and weather comes in, especially cold weather comes in, you can look out ahead of you as you drive, and when you see the tires in front of you spitting water up, you're good to go. As soon as you see that water spray stop, and then the tires just look shiny,
yeah,
and then you look in your rear view and you see all the headlights are lighting up the pavement and the highway, and it just looks very, very shiny. And then all of a sudden on your windshield, you hear that, and the rain starts to go to ice. we had a long ways to go, and there was no sense pushing it.
Not going to make it home anyway.
So we got caught up in a storm. We pulled off in Iowa City and found a great hotel. Problem is trying
they
to
even let us valet park. We're so special.
Yeah, trying to get in there with a B truck. It's not a huge B truck. It's a 1-ton dually with a flatbed on there. But trying to get that into a downtown college campus anywhere where we found the hotel, not going to happen. So they let us valet park out in front of the hotel, and then we hiked down 4 or 5 blocks and found a great little Mexican joint to have dinner. So we had a great time away.
It was lovely, very lovely.
Working
Lots of
on
quiet.
for future things that we'll talk about later, some future projects, and so we've just been scrambling, literally, mentally, and physically, just to get back, get all the things going, get things moving forward. We are currently prepping for the West Virginia Beekeepers Association conference, the Honey in the Hills, coming up this Friday and Saturday. And so as soon as we were back, we were firing up the wax dipping tank, getting some boxes dipped, and getting all of the things that we're going to bring to that conference ready.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of for me personally, the stress really starts, because it's not, we can think through a program. We can think through, we need to do these sequences of things.
Right.
And it's usually not a big deal. You think through it. Okay, I've got that equipment. We've got these supplies. It's a matter of loading it. Not a problem. Good to go. I've got this inventory. We're squared away.
Yeah.
But then then all of a sudden you get past the logical side of it. And when the rubber hits the road, it's time to actually start to account for it all. And how are we going to load it up? What kind of, are we going to take just the truck? Do we take a trailer?
And we're going to throw some chaos in there. It's like ripping out all your kitchen cabinets and then trying to cook. We've completely disassembled everything we had in place because we're trying to finish a new shop. So nothing is where it's supposed to be.
No, there's with the new warehouse and the new shop versus the old wood shop. It's like it's
a little bit tornado feeling.
It is. And then we were wanting to be way further ahead for the first coming learning yards, but it'll be what it'll be. As my buddy Yappy the Bee Man always says on the phone. It's just one of those things. We just do the best we can with what we've got, where we're at, move forward, put a plan together. But it can wear you out. It can stress you out too.
I always tell new mamas starting homeschooling, and I'll use KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And I'm not trying to call anybody stupid. I'm just saying, like, you've got to try to keep it simplified as much as you can, especially being a large family like this. Everything can be in chaos. I mean, every single part of your life can be simultaneously in chaos, you feel. But if you try to simplify everything as much as you can, it'll be okay.
Well, you actually hit a good point there. What's the difference between chaos and order? Really, like if you, we can't go too deep tonight, because I don't think I can hang on with my own thoughts.
You know that as soon as I sit down, I start yawning. So you know me too well. You can't keep it too long.
I'm holding back the yawns too. But spend a little bit of time thinking, what is the difference between chaos and order? There is a very, very, very fine line between chaos and order. What seems like chaos to others may be perfect order for you. You may just be one component away in a logical process from going from chaos to order. And I think tonight we're going to start kind of unfolding on that. Just the last of the updates. We're getting ready for the West Virginia, the Honey in the Hills conference. We'll be giving, I'm giving 2 talks and a round table.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about presenting. I've got a brand new presentation, Homestead Beekeeping, Making Ends Meet, and Creating Abundance in the Bee Yard. We want to be really open and honest about our beginnings in beekeeping, why we got to the place of turning it into what it's become. But there is such a beauty and an art of integrating all the things on the homestead, your livestock, your plants, your herbs, your bees, all in the same place, where they're all a companion to each other. They're all working in their own harmony, where they're all kind of supporting itself and are all creating little leverage points within the system. Rather than trying to take beekeeping and forcing it into a homestead system, we've found the way to, for us, how to integrate beekeeping into that, how to stack all these different functions and utilize the things that the bees do well, the things that the chickens did well, and the goats and the cows,
Yes.
how they all kind of blend together. And so we're looking forward to kind of sharing that conversation as one of our talks. The other talk that we're going to give is hard lessons learned growing a bee yard, and we're going to get down to a lot of the nitty gritty, the things that really cost us a lot of time and cost us a lot of money and heartache, and it cost us a lot of those late night talks with the boss on, you can't keep killing bees. You've got to find ways to get these bees through the winter. A lot of uncomfortable moments in past years, and those were things that we're honest about. Sharing the hard lessons learned, I think, is some of the most important things that you can do with folks. It's really easy to share what you think you've done well or what you think you've done right.
Well, you got to watch out. And sometimes that can be a little tricky because then you set yourself up for always feeling like you're failing. So maybe,
It's sharing the heart, sharing the actual nitty gritty is, I think, really important, because I think we all learn. I learned the best the hard way, unfortunately. And when you can share with others what you have made mistakes doing, I think it puts them in a place to be way more successful than you. And that's the key. We are not trying to be the most successful beekeepers. We're not trying to be the most successful homesteaders. We're trying to do our best on our walk, and we want to share a lot of the hard lessons learned with folks, so maybe they can avoid those pitfalls. They can go make their own mistakes. They can circle back, share those with us, with other folks, be a lighthouse to somebody else. And so we're really looking forward to that. There also there's going to be a round table, I think, with me, Fred Dunn, Dr. Humberto, and I think maybe Paul Kelly, on social media, Facebook, how beekeeping has been kind of been integrated into that. So there's going to be a lot of great folks. I can't even begin to list them all, but be on the lookout for a lot of upcoming content. We're going to see a lot of great and familiar faces out there too. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're really looking forward to that, and we bring it into the conversation tonight, and complete honesty and transparency. That even if you think for some reason that you look at Susie and I and what we do here at Nature's Image Farm, and you think, well, these guys have it all figured out, they must know how to do all these things, and they don't stress about it, you're dead wrong. Because we bring in this conference into this conversation because it's a part of our daily farm life. It's a part of our thought processes. And it's like anything else that we take on can add stress, and we have to work through that in a positive way. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. What are some of those things that stress you out?
Yeah.
So, Susie, what are some of the things that stress you out here on the homestead this time of year?
Well, this time of year, there's certain stressors, and I think it's just for me, the planning. Everybody loves to kind of dream that dreamy garden. Oh, I can't wait to have this and that and all the vegetables, do all the things, and then it's like Greg said, where the rubber meets the road. It's the work that comes before you to try to get all those dreamy dreams put into reality. And I think it's just me trying to say, okay, this is what I want, but this is how much time I have to actually execute the reality of the goal. So the stressors in the garden is, if I want to plan to have all these things, great. But how much of that plan, how many of those things can I actually execute? So maybe I don't start as many seeds as I wanted to in the spring. Maybe I direct sow them into the ground because it's a chaotic spring, and maybe it's even too wet to get up there. We have very steep ground. And although I had a friend give us mini, what are they even called? Like lick tubs? What are those things called?
Mineral tubs.
Mineral tubs. Anyway, a friend graciously gave us all these mineral tubs, and they're beautiful purple. I think they're going to be awesome because there's a lot of my garden that actually is just, it's Greg tilled it all beautifully, but everything kind of just pushes downward. And all of this great, amazing soil that we had built over the time just kind of just erodes kind of downward. And where I plant the stuff that comes out beautifully every year is at the base. And then everything up top is still very heavy clay and it's just hard to work. It always grows the best weeds. And so I'm just slapping those suckers with some mineral tubs and calling it good. But those are empty. So I have to figure out a way to get them all filled. I don't think I want to move them after they've been filled. So I think I have to fill them after they've been placed. And so it's just all these little things. I have to figure out how to do it, get holes in the base to, and get them filled with something. I can't take the clay and fill them. So I've got to find some soil intent. And so things like that. Projects undone. We're still waiting on a bathroom to be finished. We are working on one toilet and one shower. So, let's get over here. We're still a little short on the internal guts of getting our bathroom done. And so just, it's starting to mound, and we know that we're getting into a chaotic spring season, which is just normal. Chaos is normal in some ways. And sometimes it's just a matter of trying to get back to a little bit more normalcy and a little less chaos. Balancing it out a little bit better than it is, because it is a little hairy trying to get 9 people ready to go out of the door in less than 2 hours on any given day. It's
especially
hard.
On a Sunday morning for church is ridiculous.
It was really quick.
No one ever needed church more than a family who tries to get in and out of one bathroom in 1 hour on a Sunday morning.
When they start taking their washcloths and clothes to church to wash up beforehand, we know we're in trouble.
Well, I think whether it's getting the bee operation, which we could spend all night. We could spend.
What are you
Get
behind
me
on?
Started with that, but there's all the things within just the bee operation itself.
Mm-hmm.
Just making sure we have a tight inventory on lids and bottoms and boxes and supers and pallets.
Recounting stuff. Yeah.
And then how much drawn frame, how much drawn comb do we have? How many skeins of fresh foundation do we have?
Yes. What are
we projecting we need? When do we need to order that by to get it? There's just all these things, and it costs you a lot of time, costs you a lot of money to figure it out. And you get to a point to where you can't err too much on the side of caution when it comes to acquiring equipment, because that can cost you, even if you have just a couple hives, or you have 200 or 2,000, you have to be careful on the cash flow in and out, especially this time of year. And that's always a big challenge. So definitely that's one of the things that it can be overwhelming and paralyzing, is just getting everything prepared, everything put together, projecting. And then when spring comes 3 weeks early, it really just puts your tail's on fire. You're running in circles. It does seem like, but that's kind of all part of it. The garden, the garden has suffered tremendously over the last couple of years, as all of our effort as a family has been put towards the beekeeping business. And so I feel guilty a lot of the times, because I know the garden is not where you want it to be. It's primarily because of the bee operation and me not being able to do all the things that I want to for you in there. But you got me thinking as you were talking. You said you had to make a move for your soil for those mineral tubs, and it got me to thinking. At the old farm, we have a cow chalet, we called it, which was just a little 3-sided building kind of built into a maple tree, just to give them some shelter and things like that.
Yeah.
And one thing we haven't done yet, and it's sat there now for, how long has that been there?
2 years, I guess.
At least 2 years. There is going to be some of the finest, most beautiful topsoil.
I didn't think about that. I forgot about that.
We'll go over, we'll take the skid steer over there and just get that cleaned out. And then we have in the drive-through of the bank barn, we have the barn clean out that we kind of put and aged outside. So I think we're going to have plenty of fertility. We'll just maybe mix that with we'll get some other, maybe some amendments, some lighter topsoil, maybe a little bit of sand, maybe get you filled up, and you can
What do
do
they
some
call that? White, the pure light. What do they call that?
pure light.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
we could mix some of that in to lighten it up.
Yeah.
Because it can be pretty dense. You don't want it to be so dense. It's like a
Yeah.
like
It
clay
needs
again.
to be loose and friable, and we have all the nutrients, so that'll be really good. It's hard for a lot of folks to understand our soil texture here, but we live in the foothills of the Appalachians, and what you have is the glaciers come through and carved out the ground, and it took all the topsoil and took it south. And so all we're left with is really heavy clay ridges.
Yeah.
And then you have some bottoms where there is a little bit better soil. But what we did for years here, where Susie's Garden's at, you can go back and check out like tomato growing tricks and those videos to kind of get an idea of the space that we're working in. But we ran goats and we ran pigs and turkeys and chickens and rabbits and did I say cows? Even cows over the garden.
There was a cow there.
And there's still a cow there.
Yeah, there's still a cow there, unfortunately. Yeah.
Buried. Anyways, I don't want to take the conversation that way, but
Jeez, Greg.
sorry about that. We've been working on the fertility naturally through ruminants, through grazing, through animals, and really got the soil looking beautiful. And it was a very healthy garden for quite a while. We tried to till things back in just to create some consistency with the soil texture, and it was great for a while. We put landscape fabric over the top, and you've got a beautiful way that you use cattle panels and hoop huts and all these kind of things to trellis and string and vine and grow all your stuff. But it's getting a little tired. It needs a little bit of help.
It needs a facelift.
A lot of that soil is running downhill.
Yeah.
Eventually it'll just run to the fruit trees where we've got the apples and pears and
complain.
cherries.
Yeah, it makes a beautiful spot where it does, but doesn't ask me where
exactly
where I want it to be.
Right. But all these things add up, and you just try to it's a problem. Chaos in and of itself is not a problem. And I think chaos can be a great thing because it forces you in a position where you have to find ways to work through it, as uncomfortable that it is. The problem is when you normalize chaos and you accept chaos as being normal all the time.
Yeah.
For me, situations here on the farm, they are complicated, but there's also a difference between complicated and chaos. Complicated is so we can still work through, we can get these things in a positive direction moving forward. Chaos is you are constantly fighting fires with not enough hose and the barns are burning down. That's a problem. There's going to be fires. We're going to be short on hose, but the difference is which way are the assets moving? Forward, backward?
Yeah.
Too much chaos is unrecoverable, I think. And so how we think about those things, the plans that we put in place to move through it, the honest feedback that we give to each other in those situations is awful helpful. But why is it, do you think, that we actually get into these situations at all? Why is it that we find ourselves in these situations where we are stressed out, we are super anxious, we are fighting that chaos firestorm with no hose and no water? If we can figure out why it is that we've got here, maybe we can learn to do better. And any ideas, Susie, on why it is that you think we get to this place nearly every single year this time of year?
Well, I would say you're just simply an overachiever. I'm just kidding. That's not why. We really love challenge, and most of the time we bite off a little bit more than we can chew for what we've already got going on. And sometimes we start a project without thinking that maybe that second more important project is going to rear its ugly head like a crack in a bathtub, or, and then having to have two projects balanced at the same time, or multiple projects at the same time. Inside and outside projects can sometimes really wear you out because you feel like you're constantly putting on one hat, taking it off, putting on another hat, or maybe trying to wear two at once. And when we're already wearing so many hats to begin with, we homeschool, we do enjoy homesteading, we are business owners. So it's all the things at once. And then the bathroom, or the garden still needs done, or the bees still need fed, or they need their, treatments. It's nice out and it's still winter, all the, typical things that you need to stay on top of. Like people want fed and, bills need paid and, all the, you've got your typicals that you're predicting, but then why do you feel overwhelmed by some of those projects? Maybe you do every single year, but you've got that new thing that you didn't expect to be doing in the middle of winter that is still lingering over your head in the spring.
If I don't get a commode fixed up here, I'm going to
be a toilet,
I'm
Greg.
Be in trouble here, folks.
Toilet.
It's obvious.
Just give us our toilet back.
We got to at least get
I'm having a porta john sat somewhere out there. I'm digging me a toilet hole or maybe just put the toilet outside.
Well, just
set it outside.
We
put a tent over
it. In this situation, I feel like, man, are you practicing what you're preaching? Because have I normalized the chaos of one bathroom? I think eventually you do find a certain amount of normalcy with something and you accept it for being chaotic.
Yeah.
But if you don't do anything about it, man, that's, next thing you know, it's okay. Well, do we need a roof? I mean, I'm exaggerating, but there is always a fire to fight.
Yes.
Whether it's, we are guilty of being overambitious.
Yes.
We'll say it. We're overambitious. We bite off more than we could chew, but we find ways to eat it cold. You've heard us say that for years and years and years on the podcast. One thing that we've tried to do is take off smaller bites so we can actually enjoy the chewing and the nutrition of that bite, enjoy that process. And so we try to find ways to be smarter about the new things that we take on. We try to be smarter about wrapping up the things that we're currently working with. And then we also are smarter about projecting growth and planning for growth. Primarily, Susie she keeps me from myself. She's capped us out at no more than, we're capped out at about 200 nukes this year. That's all we're going to probably sell is 200 nukes.
You said probably. I caught that.
Probably. I mean, is there room? It's okay. We probably, let's not try to sell more than 1,000 or 1,500 queens. When you get enough experience doing the thing that you're doing, you understand the logistics, you understand what it actually takes to facilitate all those things. It's when you are over ambitious beyond that. If we would say, okay, we're going to jump to 600 nukes this year, and 4,000 queens, could we do it? We probably could. Well, should we do that? Absolutely not, because we will burn up all of our stock, all of our inventory to supply for everybody else. And then what do we have left? We're going to be stuck with 40 or 50 colonies going into the wintertime. And that's not a healthy picture for a business moving forward. I say that because I did that for years and years and years. I had a really hard time telling people no.
Yeah. Oh, I love Keith Spillman. 200 plus or minus.
Plus 50%. Or minus 50. No, I've. This year is really going to be one of the ones where
I'm like the Wicked Witch of the West. You can't do this.
Yeah, I think it's it's healthy because she knows me better than me, and no matter what I say, she knows where I'm getting at in the things that I'm trying to say or the goals. And as we have taken a more conservative approach with our colony or using our resources to make those queens, we often a much healthier situation because we set those caps, we set those boundaries and said, this is why we're setting these boundaries. This is where we're setting our limitations. Let's achieve those goals. And now it gives us time to work on everything else, like fencing and stuff in the building and the shop, and the list goes on and on and on. That are we're going to require an enormous amount of time and labor and money to get where it needs to go. So setting realistic expectations for where you want to go with your goals, with your season is a big deal. And also setting boundaries, being honest and say, if you have these lofty goals and say, I want to make 50 splits this year, great. but maybe set the boundary at 25 first. And once you hit those 25 and you feel like you have done right by those 25 colonies, now keep moving forward. Sometimes when we set a goal or a boundary, we are so headstrong on reaching that wherever that it is, that it creates so many fail points all along the way.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're completely unrecoverable. So,
or in the garden, you start to, like for me, I would start to cut corners. Well, I don't have to worry about mixing the soil first. and then it's a packed mess and nothing grew in it. And it was just a waste of time. And the same thing, if you want 50, if you want to make 50 splits or do whatever, if your goal is walk it backwards and see if it's actually attainable. Like if you're going to be successful,
that's a great,
is it realistic?
Exactly. That's a hard time is when things are new, they're really hard to walk it back. When you have experience, it gets easier. But we've talked about this before. Whether you want to make 600 nukes, 50 nukes, or 5 nukes, figure out what does that actually look like.
Yeah.
What does the asset look like at that point in time, and then walk it all the way back.
Yeah.
What needs to be in place from there all the way back. And once you get all the way to where you are currently,
yeah,
now you can say, hey, is that actually obtainable this year?
Yeah.
Or do I need a stepping stone goal which is this year to get me to there for the next year or the year following? And I think as humans, as long as we're making progress and we're moving forward, I think that in itself gives us a lot of motivation to keep digging in, especially when it's ugly and muddy and bloody and you're bruised up. But if we set the goal way, way too high and we never get there, it's absolutely demoralizing and it affects lots of other aspects in our life. So I think why we get into these positions where we're anxious, we're stressed out, we're overwhelmed, is because maybe we do bite off more than we can chew. Maybe we're not setting realistic goals. Maybe it's something new and we don't know what to expect, and it's hard to gauge those things. And maybe we're just flat out afraid. Maybe we are afraid to fail. Maybe we're afraid to make those mistakes.
Yeah.
And fear is no way to live. Living in fear of the unknown is one of the most chaotic ways to live mentally. And I think it can be a hobble for a lot of folks. It can also be a crutch for a lot of folks too. But to live your life in fear on these things it is hard to get out of that loop. The fear of the unknown, the fear of this is something new, the fear is am I going to make it? The fear of how much of my family's income am I risking to do this? Yeah. Fearing, do I have the skills at all to do these things? Some of these things are valid and warranted, but once we start to think through them and put together a healthy plan, then I think that's a great way to help mitigate how much of that anxiety or stress or overwhelming feelings that we kind of have. Susie, when we're working through all of those kind of things, how do you work through those moments of anxiety or stress or feeling overwhelmed?
Well, I'm kind of the list maker of the family.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to make some sort of list. So it's not necessarily always for me. It's almost like I spill my brain out so that I don't forget what I was supposed to be doing or my goal. So sometimes I make like that master list that's in my head so that everybody else can see it too. Like, have you ever just started getting really anxious and frustrated because you think everybody should know what's on your mind? Or it's probably me that does this, but everybody should know what I'm thinking. I'm buzzing around the house, like almost in a fluster. I've got so many things to do, but if I were to just make a list of what those things are that I'm trying to accomplish, then somebody else try to help. So I try to with kind of a brain or master list through that, because it's really hard to. I always feel like I'm forgetting something. I'm going to forget something I had meant to do, and it should have been more important than the thing that was at the bottom of my list, but the top of my brain. So I try to make a master list, but I also start each day with kind of a little bit of a plan, a daily plan or goal, even if it's just one thing. sometimes when the twins were first born, I felt like if I could just accomplish one thing, even if it was something silly like laundry, it would be okay. If all we do is get all of the laundry done today, I am going to be so happy. You know what I'm saying? So just that daily plan or goal is super important so that I know that I'm making some progress. Something you can, like, people like to check things off their list. I think it's if you're that person, then do it. Make the list.
Yeah.
Yes, you're crossing something off or you're checking something off the boxes, and I think it makes me feel like I've done something. But then once I actually have something on the whiteboard or piece of paper, I can either divide and conquer by giving everybody something to do on that list or some small task that pertains to that, or the mini hands make light work, where we all get together in the garden and we start, everybody pulls a weed. I don't care what it looks like, pull something, and especially in the spring, because there's lots more weeds than there are. There's nothing else growing, so they can't hurt much. So just trying to make headway with everybody pushing together to do something, or divide the list out and conquer it.
I think building that momentum, a lot of times when the set of sequences to complete the task are complicated and one hinges off of the other, you can find yourself paralyzed until you make some kind of movement, one little step forward. Creating that momentum, I think, is a big deal. If you're a list maker, like you mentioned, you're creating that list, you're able to cross that thing off. Okay, now I'm making a little bit of progress. I think one of the things to keep in mind is to always be mindful and appreciate that low-hanging fruit when it's there. There is absolutely no need to pull out the ladder and climb to the top of that apple tree to pull that one apple off the very top. If you are struggling to find a bite to eat, when there is that apple right there at high level for you to pick, sometimes we are so focused on the biggest, the best, sun-ripened, whatever that is, that we absolutely run ourselves into circles, and then eventually the fruit rots, falls off the tree, and is full of maggots on the ground, and we never picked a single fruit. I think we all are guilty of that. We will put things off for so long. Well, it's not the rightness, or I really need to have a better that, or this, I need this thing done first and then that. And then we can kick the can so far down the road that the thing never happens. That's the worst place to be in. One of the greatest, we've said it many times, we'll probably always continue to bring this up in the homesteading world, is Joel chicken farmer. I'm sure most of you know who Joel Salatin is, but perfect is the enemy good.
I say that so often, especially as a homeschool mom.
I'm gonna say that again. Perfect, enemy of good. We so many times are trying to figure out the perfect bee box, or the perfect bee yard, or the perfect way to drop the queen cells, or the perfect way to raise a queen, or the perfect way to trellis the tomatoes, or it prevents us from doing a good, acceptable job at the time. And that good, acceptable job at the time moves you forward, gives you momentum, gains experience. Now, when the next time comes around and you have to make that choice again, now you have a point of reference. That is such a big deal on the homestead, because a lot of us, we weren't raised in all these things. In the talk that we're going to give upcoming at the West Virginia conference this weekend, we're going to dig into a little bit of the uncomfortable. How did we get here? How did we actually get to this place to where we're sitting behind microphones talking about years of homesteading experience? There was a very tragic occurrence that happened that we're going to talk about that led us to this point. In doing that, we are learning all these life lessons and skills and old-time ways right alongside of our kids, making mistakes with them. And if there is anything more humbling, I don't think I'll ever know. But making mistakes with your kids in front of them and owning them and accepting them and learning together has been one of the greatest humbling opportunities, I think, of our life. Beekeeping is another great humbler, because until we got started and gained experience, it felt like shooting in the dark constantly. But creating that momentum, that low hanging fruit, gives you the opportunities to move forward. It gives you that sense of accomplishment. And I think it's a really, really big deal. One of the things that I like to do is I try to get out of my head. It's really, really hard. I know it rattles around. There's a lot of echoes in there, but I can totally get caught up in my own thinking. A lot of things that we just mentioned, thinking. Not all Well, that's weird. So here we are back again. We were just talking to ourselves there because our screens went totally.
It's gone.
Said
It
we
was
were
gone.
off and there was no connection. But
Oh,
anyways, there. I just kept going, talking and talking. So I think we're back on.
we were trying to talk.
I want to apologize all day long about the internet, but
There's so nothing we can do about it.
we have some plans that we'll talk about more in the future. But a dedicated studio for video and podcast with a solid internet connection.
Hopefully.
Anyways, sorry about that with the tech thing. I was just kind of going over some of the things that I do to help stay grounded, literally, and that's through prayer, meditation, spending time thinking, also getting into a creative zone. Whether if you're a musician or you paint or you like to turn a wrench, finding that place where you can tap into that side of your brain and get to the creative side of you, a lot of times helps get through those blocks of pushing through those lists, thinking about the next thing. Now you got to be careful not to use it as an excuse or as procrastination.
Right.
But one of the things that I love to do is just to absolutely just get out of my own head, totally escape me. If I can get to that place where it is just me looking down at me, looking out whatever is going on in life, I love that. A thinking chair in the bee yard is the single most important piece of equipment, and I would say the single most important piece of equipment in life. is that thinking chair in the bee yard, that place where you can think, you can connect, you can clear out your mind and all your baggage. You can pray, you can meditate, you can focus, you can zone in, you can tune into the bees and nature. For me, has been an absolute game changer in the way I think about things, what I learn about the bees, and what I was bringing up when our connection went out is it is very important to be able to get to that place when things are going wrong. Um, to be able to get to that point, I think takes a lot of practice, and spending time when things are going right, doing that is really, really important, because creating those healthy habits of doing it when things are right is extremely helpful to be able to go to that when things are going wrong.
Yeah.
And so for me, like I mentioned, one of my most favorite things to do, I think I've got a picture of it. Hopefully I'll remember to put it in our talk for West Virginia. I think you just see my smoker and you see my boot toes and a field of clover just looking out over a ridge.
Yeah.
I love to sit there and just lay in the clover, close my eyes, like right in front of the colonies. And I know that's going to sound ridiculous, but to have the bees flying over you, buzzing, and you tune into that frequency of them doing that, and you're laying down in the clover and you can hear them buzzing around the clover, and you just close your eyes, you empty out you focus on the bee sound, the warmth, the energy,
Yeah.
and you just clear your mind out. And then it's like taking a power nap, and it helps
Maybe
to
you
get
did.
through. Probably I probably have. Maybe that big puddle of slobber that was there was probably the reason
You
why.
were watering the soil.
But I want to encourage you folks to spend some time doing that. Is there anything that you do, Susie, to help work through or push through those blocks or those procrastinations, or to help push through that anxiety or stress?
That's what I do. I make my lists. I make my lists. I check them off. And honestly, if it's a sticky note, a spare cut off piece of paper, and a crayon, honestly, it is. I keep it simple, and we just keep pushing forward, no matter what that means. If it's just me, if it's all the kids helping, if it really is. We try to make it a family goal. Sometimes Greg jumps in and helps whenever he can, and we do the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like a mom does all this and dad does all that. And so making those lists and try to just, even if it's, I can't think of everything, and it's just, what has to happen today? What has to happen today? What's the goal? And so everybody understands that's the goal, and we push towards that. And we end up feeling successful. So, I don't need to have, my master plan list is just like, what, chickens need this, garden needs that, dad needs this, all the little things. But I'm talking like, if your day is set before you, what do you want for that day? What's going to make you go to sleep that night and rest your head and not think about anything else? And sometimes that you just have to shut your brain off regardless. You don't always get everything done, and that's okay. To be okay with not getting it all done, to not get the list checked off completely and in the trash can. You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes being okay and if your list is too long, reassess your goal. And measure of success, because
Right. Well, those are great. We have a lot of interviews to come out this year from Hive Life with some great minds, not only in beekeeping, but farm life and home life. I really took away from the interview with Ian Stepler that we had is talking with Ian about, how do you balance out family and farm and all these different things. And one of the takeaways that I got from Ian that I see working in our lives, and it's something I think that we're going to continue double down on, is putting out a schedule the things that need done. Even if you're a little bit heavy on the time that you think it needs to take to do it, great, but overbook your time that you need to do those tasks, because now you've got on the calendar, you've got a shared calendar, you can see all the things that need to happen throughout the week. This day we're setting out starters, this day we're grafting, this day we're pulling queens and shipping, and on top of everything else. but now we all know what to expect, on what days to expect it. Now we can all fall into a support role for each other on the different things that are happening on the calendar. And if we get those things done early, great. Now we can fall back and start doubling down on some efforts on some other things that kind of need to happen.
Yeah.
That really helps to keep the stress down throughout the year when those things happen. And that's a really big deal. Scheduling those tasks, scheduling all the things that need to happen and occur are a big deal. Finding ways to delegate some of those tasks to others that can do a great job or a good job to kind of free you up to do other things that are more sensitive, time sensitive, or are more valuable as a whole for the business is a big deal. Now you're not stressing out and being anxious over every little item or detail or chore. You can focus on the things that need your touch. Meanwhile, delegating, giving responsibility to somebody else to excel, to take care of and do those other things too. And as a big picture, we all win. Everything moves forward. And that is the rising tide raises all ships. As a family on the farm, all working together. It's a team effort. And I think makes a huge difference for us. So
sure does.
Before our internet crashes again, we're going to probably keep this thing to about an hour. But if you have any questions, leave them here below. We'll hit a couple questions before we go. We got a question here from Tennessee Tim. Have y'all tried freeze-dried scrambled eggs yet?
I haven't. I do have quite a big basket of eggs. Our chickens finally are firing on all cylinders. So that is on my list to do. Hopefully I get that done this week. I do have a few things in the freezer pre-frozen to put in my freeze dryer tonight. That I don't know if I want to put my in with unfrozen anyway. So I got to work it out, but I'm going to try to get that done this week. We'll see if there's too many things on my to-do list.
We did. Susie made us a treat that we had a road trip. We stopped into one of the truck stops and got hot water.
Yeah.
And rehydrated beef stew.
Yeah.
So you dehydrated some Denny Moore beef stew.
Yeah, I didn't have anything pre-made that I thought would rehydrate well, and so I thought, well, it's not going to be a waste. It's still going to be good if we just do Denny Moore beef stew. I had it in cans downstairs, so I dehydrated it or freeze dried it, and then I don't think I put enough hot water in mine. I don't know about you, but I don't think I put enough hot water in mine because this chunks of beef had like that dry spot in them where they crunch a little bit,
right?
But it was still so filling and so good to eat something not road food. So that was really fun. I thought it was super awesome to have that. So
Tennessee Tim says they'd love for y'all to do a review on that freeze dryer. You've gotten a lot of rotations of a lot of different things in there so far. So I can only imagine what else can be done, but we enjoyed that. And ordinarily you wouldn't take a perfectly good can of beef stew and freeze dry it, but it was an experiment to see what does something like that taste like and consistency. Is it worth putting the effort when you do make the homemade canned?
Well, when you're a canner first and foremost, when you can your lives, when your garden goodies and what's hard to wrap your head around with the freeze dryers, why would I go through the effort? But that made it so that we could travel and we didn't have to have a microwave to warm it up. Now we could have eaten lukewarm, like out of the metal can beef stew. But if you want something hot and you don't necessarily want to go into the gas station with your own bowl and spoon and to find a microwave, this was literally hot water out of their like coffee maker part of their coffee makers. And I just had it in mason jars. I had stuffed the freeze dried beef stew into mason jars. So it was pretty cool.
It was cool. It was super delicious. It was fun to be able to do that. And what's nice about that is on road trips or just wherever, just you get so tired of eating just junk, horrible food on the road.
We tried to do okay. We
did pretty good.
Yeah.
But having food that better suits you, and it's homemade. It's just, for me.
Well, Denny Moore wasn't homemade, but
it wasn't homemade, but it sure beat trying to swallow another McDonald's hamburger or something else going down the road there. But
that gave me the chills.
But anyways, yeah. So that was fun. A lot more updates, I'm sure, coming out We are getting into a fun area this year too. We didn't get a chance to do any apple grafting. I love apps. One of my two of my favorite things. If I could just pick a couple things to do every just to, if there was if I let my three favorite things, I think or four, maybe it's my five favorite.
Okay.
The list goes on and on.
Wrap
and on.
it up, kid.
Okay. I love grafting fruit trees. I absolutely love grafting
It is
fruit
fun.
trees. I love grafting queens, and I love running the sawmill. Those three things I just absolutely love. And I think all will play a part in our farm moving forward. But we didn't get a chance to really graft any fruit trees this year. But we are going to have some fruit trees that are just going to start coming into bearing. There are some that we planted. Oh
Way
my
too long
Lord.
ago.
Don't even, I don't know. Yeah.
The twins were in my belly. So 8+
8 years
ago.
That should have been bearing years ago. That's a story for a different day, as they say. But on the, just a funny quick story. When I was talking with Bob Benny and spending time just picking his brain and getting into the business of beekeeping and how he's gotten to where he is and the steps along the way. And he said, Greg, it takes you about 3 times of building anything before you get it to where you want it. And I always remind myself that, because now that we're in like what are we, the 1, 2, we're in like the 3rd and 4th iteration of orchard. Those are the ones that are seeming like they stick. And you've made enough mistakes along the way. So,
we did have to dig out and replant one. And I don't know if we shouldn't have to done that again. I think we should have put it in a different spot, but oh well.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I'm not sure if it's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I don't know. We should have some fruit soon.
I hope so.
On some of these, especially the dwarf apples.
Yeah.
And I think we might see plums this year. We should finally see dwarf apples. And what's fun about that is it's always a reminder. So many of the things in life, when you are living life a certain way and you are trying to be in tune with all things and be aware and look for those signs that God gives you and know that there is a plan for you and you are walking that path, you can't help see how everything is constantly tied together. But we were talking about the low-hanging fruit earlier. We're talking about dwarf trees having those first fruits. There is something in our seasons of life where you have your first fruits. You have those early fruits. You have those later fruits. You have fruits along the way. And it's just an important reminder that all these things are just constantly connected. But I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of new fruit type things start to come into bearing, and how that kind of impacts our family life. You're going to probably see some of that in videos. But how amazing would it be to see a freeze dry video of Susie freeze drying apples that were apples of antiquity that we grafted and saved and kept alive in our area, apples that even came from Susie's old family's homestead. There's so many neat things that life is just constantly tied together when you know how to look at it, when you can see that abundance. I get excited and can kind of geek out about that. But John Hatch says, need to do a video on fruit tree grafting. Boy, I've got enough footage. I don't know that I've got videos. I've got enough photos to do probably a fun voiceover. But right now I've got the as you can tell, the backlog on videos right now, I probably have about 30 videos that need edited. I just have not had time to put out.
Not enough hours in the day.
No. We're heading out to the West Virginia conference this week. And we'll be taking more video, capturing more content. And we're going to try to find ways to try to get more content out. These lives are great because we can at least reach you guys, and you guys can be involved in our walk every single week. And I'm really excited about that too. I love the videos, and I love being able to put those out and that creative expression, the art of that. But sometimes the perfect is the enemy of good, and sometimes there's just not enough time to even put something good together. So we have to focus on the lower hanging fruits, even as we get started and keep moving forward through the first part of this season. So there's a lot more to say on that, but Susie's up at an hour.
minute.
Or anything we need to say?
Well, next week be a little conference. Hopefully we can come back and talk a little bit about all the fun things we got to experience there and maybe shout out some people and or we'll just like roll over here and just hang out and chill. I don't know.
we'll have to play that one by ear. I think the show is over at 5:30. By the time we pack everything and get home, it'd probably be 11 p.m. or so at night on a Saturday night. And we're taking all the equipment here with us to do the podcast and do some video things. So it'll be interesting. So hopefully we'll see you this coming Sunday night, a week from today. If we don't see you, just know we're not going anywhere, but we probably just barely got home in time, and we'll see you again soon. That's pretty much it. If you're in the Ohio or surrounding states, we have some folks driving 14 hours to pick up nukes because they believe in what we're doing here as a family on the farm. They want our genetics in their bee yard to grow what they're doing. So for all the folks who have bought nukes or packages or queens, I want to thank you again for your support. It makes all of this possible. For those who are interested in looking for nukes, packages, queens, or supplies, you can visit us on the web at nature'simagefarm.com. We're taking orders for nukes. Those will be ready late May, early June. Queens right now, we've got late June, July, and August that are available. We have packages that are going to be available April the 8th up here at the farm, and then also on a delivery Columbus, Cleveland, and then the last stop will happen around 29th. We are working on getting the new supply shop put together the best we can for now, but it will be a continual work in progress the entire year. But we are going to be focusing and specializing in wax dipped assembled equipment, including the Premier foundation from Premier, bees. There's a lot more. Pro Suite in bulk. If you need Pro Suite, 5-gallon buckets, or even a tote, let us know on that one soon, because we are getting all that kind of scheduled now. That's pretty much, I think, all the housekeeping that I could think of at the moment. But a lot of orders are coming in hot and heavy. It's that time of year. So if you're thinking about getting nukes or queens from us, or even packages that we bring up from Georgia, don't wait too long.
Yeah, especially nukes. There's a cap for Greg.
There is a cap. So again, nature'simagefarm.com. You guys know where to find us. If you're looking at bucket feeders or bucket plugs, we ship those out every day as well. And Susie's also been busy shipping out the Hive Alive pollen patties.
Yeah.
Those are flying off the shelf too. So if you're interested in those, again, check us out on our website. In the meantime, if you are following us along on the hashtag Cheap Seed Challenge, keep posting your photos and pictures or videos to the farm page. We love seeing all that. Be sure to tag us in that and throw in that hashtag Cheap Seed Challenge. We want to follow your growth and your journey throughout the year too. So keep us in mind. Looking forward to seeing everyone growing everything, not only your cucumbers and tomatoes, so your nukes and that too. You're listening to Nature's Image podcast, and with here the Nature's Image Farm, or if you listen to play, I want to thank you for spending time with us. I always you listen with an open heart. As always, remember to
be you want to see in this world. See you next, guy.